A deep dive as to how the establishment appear to be orchestrating and managing this plan begins with again looking toward the tax haven system, more specifically the corporate tax windfalls being made from foreign direct investment, making up a substantial percentage of state budget. Over the last 10 years, spending on what are termed additional departments, rivaling that of social welfare and health, have seen a dramatic rise in cost of 253%. In the latest 2024 government budget, €3.3 billion has been allocated to equality and inclusion initiatives, a staggering amount. €3.2 billion was also made out for specialist community, disability-based services, implementation of action plan for disability services, as well as support for LGBTI, women, Roma and traveller communities. Also included is €2.15 billion for the fair and efficient system for international protection seekers, being allocated to IPAS accommodation, legal responsibilities, funding initiatives for integration of IPAS persons, as well as international protection child payments. A €1.4 billion amount was allocated for diversity, equity and inclusion under the heading of children and young people. Having received a windfall of €24 billion in 2023, a clue as to how over-reliant the uniparty establishment are upon the tax haven model reveals itself in how they allocate corporate taxes toward department spending, as just shown, as the benefits of such should ideally and rightly keep taxes low for workers, while providing a society of high-quality health, as well as other public services, of which Ireland clearly does not. As Ireland benefits from better demographics than larger countries, such as the UK and US, due to lower population numbers depending on government services. So where else, apart from the areas already examined, is all this corporate tax money going? The answer is simply the government itself, as annual expenditure has risen from €70 billion to a staggering €120 billion over the last decade, with the four main areas of expenditure being social protection, health, additional departments, as well as debt servicing and EU payments. One constantly contentious area of the Irish state is that of housing. So much so, it has recently been given its own department, yet evidence reveals it to be an issue the uniparty establishment continue unable to get a grasp on. This is of course by their own design, having handed over the task of providing the majority of housing to the private sector, while housing numbers continue to remain drastically out of step with the rapid rise in population. Latest figures show social housing to be at a cost of €7.93 billion annually. This is to cover the areas of homelessness, social housing, and housing-assisted payments, and yet the country has a chronic housing and homeless crisis, even with such a large budget, persistently unresolved. All the while, housing affordability continues to worsen, with the ratio of house price to income skyrocketing to over 27%, compared to the OECD average of just over 4%. Immigration is indeed an obvious factor, despite prominent voices of the political left spectrum arguing and denying to be the case. For example, with non-Irish immigrants currently standing at around 13% of the population, receiving a hefty 37% in overall housing-assisted payments. One final area of curious note is that of debt servicing and EU payments, having a latest budget of around 14.9 billion euros, with the largest part of this amount going toward what is labelled other non-voted expenditure, being the salaries of judges, ministers, and that of the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council costs, among others. In summary, despite significant proportions of the budget going to social spending, social programs, migrant-related costs, as well as housing initiatives, major issues of housing affordability persist. This causes a knock-on effect on quality of living, and at worst forced emigration. All the while, the reckless open borders and rate of immigration continues to be ignored and underplayed by the uniparty establishment, as well as other vested interests of NGOs and other activists. Is this massive increase in department spending perhaps a massive gamble or a calculated risk by the uniparty establishment? Is it part of their plans for the future of the country, in hoping to reap the rewards of this investment, that importing the Third World will fruition to a worthwhile skilled labour force that contribute? Clear evidence from other European countries proves otherwise, as systemic multiculturalism on Western nations continues to be a proven and abject failure.